I think that's all I had to say from my side. I mean, we could do another problem, but I thought I would spend the last half an hour or so just telling you about my perspective of what we have covered so far. Could you turn off the microphone? I'm hearing some echo. Yeah. So this is something that Andrew Ng, who is a professor at Stanford, points out in his class on machine learning. If you look at the top skills that employers need in the industry today, the very first skill that they have mentioned, this is by Computer World, the top among the top 12 IT skills, the first one is machine learning. And we have spent a significant part of this course doing machine learning, specifically on text documents. But there are other topics in machine learning that we did not cover. And if we had a separate course on machine learning, we could cover other topics also. But what I want to emphasize to you is whether your interests are more towards the industry or whether you're inclined more towards research or any of the sciences, machine learning is a very important subject to learn today. And unfortunately, it's not a subject that is taught, I think, even in many of the IITs. So it should probably be a core course, a core computer science course. And it's unfortunate that it's not. Given that its importance is so high today because everybody is dealing with massive amounts of data nowadays. And you have to know how to mine uh, large amounts of data and to make inferences on that data, to discover patterns in the data, and to be able to mathematically argue for some measure of confidence in those patterns. So statistics used to be a field where, you know, where you talk about confidences and all, but machine learning is more applied. So two of the broad problems that we have seen from machine learning in this course are classification and clustering. So classification and clustering are not restricted to text documents. They have all kinds of applications. Even if you are, even if you look like at a field like say genomics, clustering and classification are heavily employed there as well. Because there also you have, instead of looking at text documents, you would look at genome sequences. And because the genomes of all species are evolutionarily related, there are certain common patterns that you expect as a result of evolution to be found in the genomes of different species. So you can find proteins, you may be able to extract proteins in some of the species and then search for genes that encode those proteins in other species. And how do you do that? There was a time when experimental biologists used to spend years of their lab time just isolating certain sections of the genome and then running experiments on them. But now machine learning techniques are used heavily even in genomics because you can discover certain patterns. Okay, you can frame those problems as classification problems or clustering problems and take your genome sequences, which are pretty cheap to sequence nowadays. So one of the things that has happened is that as technology has enabled us to gather data more and more cheaply, the kind of problems that earlier couldn't have been solved can now be solved. And so the techniques for solving them have been recently developed. So machine learning, data mining, uh, these are all upcoming fields. And what I would like to point out to you is Stanford is offering in the coming couple of weeks 3 free classes online for general public around the world. So the three courses that they're offering are artificial intelligence, machine learning, and I think introduction to databases. So if you just search for AI class, you can look at this website, Introduction to Artificial Intelligence, which is taught by Sebastian Thrun, who's a very well-known researcher in computer vision and AI at Stanford, and Peter Norvig, who is who heads Google Research, and who has also authored a very popular textbook on AI along with Stuart Russell. So this is something you may want to keep track of. You could register for this course, and they're going to post videos online, and you can do the assignments, and they're going to give feedback on them. And I think about 70,000 or so people have already registered for the AI course. Likewise, there's a course on machine learning, which is pretty mathematical, I would say. So it may not be something you may want to immediately do, but at least once you've once you're comfortable with linear algebra and statistics, I would strongly urge you to develop some kind of a background in machine learning, so that and machine learning is a part of AI. So if you do a course in AI also, I believe you will end up doing machine learning for a significant part of the course. So that, as I said, the two other courses are machine learning by Andrew Ng and Introduction to Databases by Jennifer Widom. And depending on which of these three courses interest you, you may want to register for them if you are interested in doing them outside of your regular curriculum. And the other general advice that I would probably give you is, do keep track of what the top universities uh, do in their curriculum, because one of the ways I think I did relatively well in IIT is I used to keep track of what they cover at Stanford, and I was able to figure out gaps in my education. And it's important to take ownership of your own education. When people are still in their undergraduate, or if you haven't worked in the industry so far, then you may not understand the importance of different subjects that may be there in your curriculum. But 10 years from now, uh, when you look back, you will probably regret not paying sufficient attention to many of the courses that you had the opportunity to take during your undergraduation or masters. So um, one good way to keep track of that is to keep looking at the websites of different universities. MIT has their open courseware website. Stanford has many of the courses online, and there are many other top universities, UC Berkeley, Carnegie Mellon, and so on. And it's important to take ownership of your own education. Okay, these courses are not something that you have to do because others are asking you to do. You have to want them to. You have to want to do them yourself, right? So it's important at some stage to take control of your own education and to see a study of these subjects as something that you are doing out of your own initiative, rather than doing it because your parents are saying, or because it's just something needed to get a job, or um, so in that in that light, I hope you understand the reason why I tried to use slides from the Stanford course, and I tried to base the content of this data mining course on the information retrieval course at Stanford. And we also looked at a few topics from internet commerce and the other data mining course taught by Anand. So so that explains the kind of approach I took, which was pretty different from, I believe, pretty different from the style with which this course was done earlier. So I would be interested to know whether uh, you appreciated this particular approach, or whether you would have preferred doing it in the more traditional way. I understand that an online format is not uh, i- it's not as good as a face-to-face format, but I think the trade-off here is not between an online and a face-to-face format. It's more between an online format which allows you to do certain topics which you may not be, which you may not have the opportunity to do face-to-face. So for those of you who are, uh, who did not find this particular way of teaching or doing the course to be as good as your regular way, try to look at it more from the perspective of what topics we covered and whether you would have done those topics otherwise, you you know in the face to face format, and maybe then you will perhaps appreciate the value of this more.